On the 25th of November, 1120, a ship known as the White Ship sank in the English Channel near Barfleur. Among its passengers was William Adeline, the only legitimate son and heir of King Henry I of England. William's death created a succession crisis for the English crown. King Henry I had no other legitimate male heirs. Although he had numerous illegitimate children, only one legitimate child remained: Empress Matilda, widow of the Holy Roman Emperor and later wife of Geoffrey of Anjou. In a move that was unprecedented for the time, Henry declared Matilda his heir and compelled his barons to swear fealty to her. However, support for a female ruler in 12th century England was fragile. Many nobles were uneasy about the prospect of a queen regnant, especially one married to a powerful and controversial foreign nobleman. When Henry died in 1135, Matilda was in Normandy. Seizing the opportunity, Stephen of Blois, Henry's nephew and grandson of William the Conqueror, moved quickly to claim the throne. Despite earlier oaths to support Matilda, many nobles and church leaders backed Stephen. However, his seizure of the throne undermined the fragile order Henry had tried to establish, and soon rival factions began to emerge. By 1139, the conflict erupted into open civil war. England descended into a long and bitter struggle for the crown, a period known as the Anarchy. Stephen of Blois was born around 1092 or 1096 in Blois, France. He was the third surviving son of Stephen, Count of Blois, and Adela of Normandy, a daughter of William the Conqueror. This lineage made Stephen a member of the Norman royal family with close ties to both England and the continent. His father, Count Stephen, was a prominent figure in the First Crusade, but later gained a reputation for abandoning the campaign early. In contrast, Stephen's mother Adela was politically active and highly influential. After her husband's death, she played a central role in raising their children and managing the family estates. It was under her guidance that Stephen's political and diplomatic skills began to take shape. Stephen was sent to the court of his uncle, King Henry I of England, where he was brought up alongside royal and noble children. This gave him an early familiarity with English politics and royal administration. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Stephen was known for his charm, generosity, and ability to win support through diplomacy rather than intimidation. Over time, he was rewarded with vast estates in England, including lands in the south and west. These holdings made him one of the wealthiest nobles in the kingdom. Around 1125, Stephen married Matilda of Boulogne, the daughter and heiress of Count Eustace III of Boulogne. Matilda brought with her not only land and wealth, but also significant political influence, as the county of Boulogne was strategically located and economically important. By the early 1130s, Stephen was in a strong position, well-connected, wealthy, and popular at court. Although not originally in line for the throne, the death of William Adeline in 1120 changed everything. As one of the closest male relatives of the king, Stephen became a potential claimant, especially in a time when female succession was still widely resisted. When King Henry I died on the 1st of December 1135, the English succession was supposed to be clear. Years earlier, Henry had compelled his barons to swear oaths of loyalty to his daughter Empress Matilda, affirming her as his chosen heir. But in practice, Matilda's claim faced serious obstacles. She was a woman in a male-dominated feudal society, and her marriage to Geoffrey of Anjou had alienated many Norman and English barons. Geoffrey Plantagenet was seen as an ambitious foreigner, and some nobles feared that his influence would threaten their own power. Matilda was also in Normandy at the time of Henry's death, while Stephen of Blois was in Boulogne, close to the English coast. Within days, Stephen crossed the Channel and made his way to London. He moved quickly. With the backing of his brother Henry of Blois, the powerful Bishop of Winchester and papal legate in England, Stephen gained the support of the Church. Despite having previously sworn to support Matilda, the leading nobles and clergy endorsed Stephen's claim. On the 22nd of December, 1135, just weeks after Henry's death, Stephen was crowned King of England at Westminster Abbey. His early reign appeared secure. Most of the barons accepted him, the Church legitimized his rule, and the general population, weary of uncertainty, welcomed the promise of stability. However, this peace would not last. By 1138, rebellion began to stir. Several powerful barons remained loyal to Matilda's claim. Among them was her half-brother Robert of Gloucester, one of the most influential nobles in the realm. Another was David I of Scotland, Matilda's uncle, who launched an invasion of northern England in support of her rights. In 1139, Matilda herself arrived in England to press her claim. She landed on the southern coast with a small retinue, backed by Robert of Gloucester and other supporters. The country was now divided between two rival courts, two rival claimants, and two factions of barons. This was the beginning of what chroniclers would later call the Anarchy, a civil war that would last for nearly 15 years. Following Matilda's arrival in England in 1139, the conflict escalated into a full-scale civil war. From this point forward, Stephen's reign was marked by persistent instability, localized warfare, and an ongoing struggle to maintain royal authority. One of the most significant events of this period occurred in February 1141 at the Battle of Lincoln. Stephen had been laying siege to Lincoln Castle when forces loyal to Matilda, led by Robert of Gloucester and Ranulph of Chester, launched a surprise attack. In the battle that followed, Stephen was defeated and captured. He was taken to Bristol and imprisoned. With Stephen in captivity, Matilda gained the upper hand. In April 1141, she entered London and was declared Lady of the English, preparing for a formal coronation. However, Matilda's political position quickly deteriorated. Her relations with the Londoners soured due to her heavy demands for money and perceived arrogance. Just days before her planned coronation, the people of London rose against her, forcing her to flee the city. Meanwhile, Stephen's wife, Queen Matilda of Boulogne, and his brother Bishop Henry of Winchester rallied loyalists to his cause. Later that year, in September 1141, Robert of Gloucester was captured during the Rout of Winchester. This allowed for a prisoner exchange. Stephen was released in return for Robert, and he resumed the throne. The civil war dragged on. Neither side could deliver a decisive blow, and loyalties continued to shift. Many barons exploited the conflict by asserting their own power locally, building unauthorized castles and ruling with near independence. Stephen's authority remained limited. Though he retained the crown, his rule was largely confined to the southeast and parts of the Midlands. Much of the west and southwest supported Matilda and her allies. In 1148, Matilda left England and returned to Normandy, which was now under the control of her son, Henry of Anjou. Though she had not secured the throne, her cause was far from defeated. The focus of the conflict now began to shift from Matilda to her son. Born in 1133, Henry was the product of two powerful lineages. His mother Matilda was the daughter of Henry I of England, and his father Geoffrey Plantagenet was Count of Anjou. By the early 1150s, Henry had inherited the Duchy of Normandy and was rapidly gaining influence in France. In 1153, at just 20 years old, Henry crossed the Channel to assert his claim to the English crown. This was not his first attempt. An earlier campaign in 1147 had ended in failure, but this time circumstances were different. Stephen's position had weakened significantly. The kingdom was exhausted after years of conflict. Many barons were weary of the continued instability, and some began to defect to Henry, seeing in him a stronger and more legitimate long-term ruler. Then, in a decisive and tragic turn of events, Stephen's eldest son and heir Eustace died suddenly in August 1153. Eustace's death dealt a severe blow to Stephen's cause. With no clear successor of his own, Stephen was now under pressure to negotiate. Later that year, Stephen and Henry met at Winchester to agree on terms of peace. The result was the Treaty of Winchester, also known as the Treaty of Wallingford. Under the agreement, Stephen would remain king for the rest of his life. Henry would be recognized as Stephen's adopted son and lawful successor. Both sides agreed to dismantle the private castles that had been built during the war and work toward restoring royal authority. The treaty effectively ended the Anarchy. On 25 October 1154, King Stephen died at Dover after 19 turbulent years on the throne. He was buried at Faversham Abbey, which he had founded with his wife Queen Matilda. Shortly afterward, Henry of Anjou was crowned King Henry II of England, becoming the first monarch of the Plantagenet dynasty. His reign would usher in a new era of reform, legal development, and consolidation of royal power.